back to HeaveMedia.com. Take it or heave it. I'm Wes Soltis. This is Ryan Peters, both editors for Heave Media.
Normally this is where we review 5 albums in 5 minutes, but last week we did 5 albums in 5 minutes, and it was more like 5 albums in the span of Schindler's List.
It was pretty long.
It was pretty long. So we've decided to shorten it a little bit this week, and we're going to do 4 albums in 5 minutes-ish.
Roughly.
So,
go! First album we're going to look at is Weezer with the Red Album. It came out on June 3rd on Geffen Records.
Rumor has it that Rivers Cuomo wrote the lyrics to the single Pork and Beans after a meeting with record company executives in which they told him that they didn't want to release the new Weezer album until he had written a song that was more catchy. He got so angry that he went home, wrote the lyrics, and the rest is YouTube history.
Now, I'm not one of those kids that hates Weezer just to hate Weezer, but you really have to wonder what they were doing on the Red Album. It jumps all over the place, and it's not as good as the Blue Album, the Pinkerton, or even the Green Album. With Matt Sharp leaving the band after Pinkerton, you have to wonder if he was actually the brains behind it all. I'm definitely going to have to heave Weezer.
The Red Album finds Rivers talking about his favorite subject once again, how much high school sucks. And sort of like Rivers himself, it gets old. When it's like the early 90s and you're talking about how much girls hate you and how you just want to hang out in your garage and rock out, it sounds ironic and detached. When you're close to 40 and you're still talking about high school, it either means that you have kids or that you're on To Catch a Predator. To my knowledge, neither one applies to Rivers, so I'm going to have to heave it.
Up next is My Morning Jacket with Evil Urges. It's out on June 10th on ATO Records. It's like you were listening to 2 different My Morning Jacket albums. On one hand, you have the band doing what they've done for the last 8 years, and that's making very good melodic alt country. And then on the other hand, you have a band that has a new direction that lacks melody and is almost unrecognizable. I'm going to have to heave Evil Urges.
I gotta say, I completely disagree with you. I don't want to be reminded of the My Morning Jacket from last year because Z sucked.
Z was great. I don't know what you're talking about.
Z was... I mean, I shouldn't say that it sucked. It was okay, but it was like, you know, you could tell they were trying to stretch their sound, but, I mean, it completely failed. It was like you take, some great melodies, and then let's pile on a bunch of pretentious crap on top of that, and we'll call it an album.
See, no, I think it's different. Whereas Z stretched about yay far, and now Evil Urges stretches about yay far. Like, you can't even tell it's Jim James' voice.
It's fantastic,
and that's the best part of My Morning Jacket.
Evil Urges sounds like somebody took Prince and somebody took Led Zeppelin and they had like a musical orgy.
That sounds awful.
Visually, maybe that sounds kind of awful, but it comes out fantastic on the album. I like Evil Urges because it makes me forget all about the excesses of Z, which I disliked very much and disagree with Wes about. The band doesn't really forego the southern blues sound that made them famous as much as they take it and incorporate 80s funk into it. And it all comes out fantastic. Wes is definitely wrong. I'm going to take it.
The next album is a self-titled debut by The Virgins. It came out on June 3rd on Atlantic.
The Virgins were exposed to an entire new audience when an episode of the show Gossip Girl, which is about attractive teenagers that have group sex, featured 5 of their songs.
The Virgins released a pretty unpretentious album for being the latest buzz band. Although the melodies drag on a little bit sometimes, I would say that it's still a pretty danceable album. I'm going to have to take The Virgins. Yep, I said it.
The whole album has a glam, fashionable feel to it. It wouldn't sound at all out of place in the background of a hipster fashion show at, say, the Salvation Army or a soup kitchen. The band plays really, really well together. They write big melodies and big hooks. And the album's short, but it doesn't overstay its welcome, so it's fantastic, and I'm definitely going to take it.
The last album we're going to look at is Wolf Parade. The name of the album is At Mount Zoomer. It came out on June 17th on Sub Pop Records.
You may not know that Isaac Brock, lead singer of Modest Mouse, is a huge fan of both Wolf Parade and songs about depression.
There's always been a disparity for Wolf Parade for me because they have 2 singers who write in 2 completely different ways, but that's really not the case on At Mount Zoomer. Spencer Krug and Daniel Bachner come together to finally create a sound that doesn't conflict. I'm going to have to take At Mount Zoomer.
Finally, on this album, they do justice to the hype that's always surrounded them. In a really, really good way, it's overstuffed with like rollicking, big, bombastic melodies, long songs, especially Killing the Beehive, which is probably the best track on the album. It's almost 12 minutes long, and it just sounds like the band and all the instruments are trying to tear themselves apart. And if that's what it sounds like, then that's what the band needs to do more often. I'm definitely going to take it.
For the Red Album, I thought that any Weezer album without ex-member Matt Sharp just isn't really that sharp at all, while Ryan wishes that Rivers Cuomo would write songs about something other than high school. As for My Morning Jacket, I thought that the new album was stretched to the point that you can't recognize the band, but Ryan loved the inclusion of funk sounds and their southern rock formula. As for The Virgins, I thought it was a totally unpretentious album for such a hyped band, and Ryan loved the glam rock feel. As for Wolf Parade, Ryan and I both love the energy and bombast of the new CD, which is both ambitious and lengthy. That'll do it for this week's Take It or Heave It. For Wes Soltis, this is Ryan Peters.
Tune in next week. We're going to tour around Chicago with R. Kelly. We're going to go to bathrooms and pee on people.
It'll be great.
It'll be great.